Okay, awesome. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys, whenever you watch this. So today we have a session with Anand. I mean, his name is pretty long and twisty, as most South Indian names tend to be. But that is not about the name as such. So Anand has converts from Lucknow and Kozhikode as of now, and among other colleges as such. But we'll quickly discuss about how his journey was towards CAT, especially given that he is a non-engineer. He was on the verge of quitting his job to prepare for CAT. He has his fingers inside the CFA gravy as well. So we'll discuss about how he went through preparing through all this, given that people also had a tough time during COVID last year, working from home. And given that he was working, how did he manage his schedule as such? So Anand, first things first, once you got the calls, did you expect that you will convert?
Not even close, sir. I mean, getting the calls itself was a huge deal to me because I know the amount of preparation that was. I mean, for CAT itself, I think CAT itself, the journey itself has been bizarre to say the least, sir. So getting calls is one thing, and converting them is like an entire ball game altogether. So all in all, did not expect to get the calls, did not expect to convert them. Both of those things happened. So quite grateful about
Okay.
happening.
Okay. Let's go through that. I mean, you have about 3 years of experience working in ENY. You were on the verge of quitting. We spoke about a couple of times somewhere around June, July last year when you had started off with the maths and LRDI parts. So what stopped you from quitting, and how did you manage your time working between, because of pandemic, I think the workloads just shot up for everyone. I mean, anyone who was employed, basically his workload basically shot up. So how did you manage your time between that, and were you actually thinking of quitting?
So I work in the business consulting division for EY. So most of my work, it revolves around traveling to the client's location. So these are locations that are unheard of, places like ETA and UP. So these are tier 3, tier 4 cities that I go to on a regular basis. Of course, I've been to Mumbai, Bangalore, amongst others, but a lot of my work involved traveling. So I would be away for anywhere between 6 to 7 months on a given year. So that's how hectic the schedule was. And then pandemic happened. So I had taken CAT before this. So before this, I had taken CAT, but it was a half-hearted attempt. I mean, it was just an attempt. It was not even a half-hearted attempt because I was traveling and doing all these things. I could never prepare in the first place. And then pandemic happened. So I was thinking, okay, I cannot handle all the workload sitting at home and preparing for CAT. It just does not work. So then I reached out to you. I asked you, so should I be doing it? You told me outright, no, don't even think about that. So I thought, okay, man has something to say. Let me just take his words for it face value. Let me just take it prima facie. Let me see what happens. I think that was the best advice, best piece of advice to not quit, because two things happened. Number one, on the exam day, I sort of felt relieved. So if this attempt goes awry, or if it goes the other way, I still have my career in EY to lean upon. That's one thing. So that lifted load altogether. I mean, that lifted half the load altogether. I was calm and relaxed on the exam day. Had I quit, I would have, I don't know. I don't know how to put it succinctly, but
That's an extra pressure. That's an extra pressure that you load. I mean, like,
definitely
which you don't need. Which you don't need.
Yeah. So I remember still on the exam day, I was listening to music. I was having a fun time just going to the exam center and just writing, because all of it was because I had something to lean. I had a safety cushion at the end of the day. I could always go back and work. So that lifts a lot of pressure. So that has been my journey. So I did not quit, and there was a lot of work, but at the end of the day, it was manageable. I mean, anybody can take out 1 to 2 hours out of their daily schedule. I mean, even if you work for say 10, 11 hours a day, 1 hour, 2 hours, it is possible. I mean, if you want to do it, you will.
I mean, with pandemic, at least you have an option of logging in a little late, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure how. See, I don't speak for everyone, and I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people who have been overworked. I know people who are like just bored sitting at home. Like I am one of them.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, like getting like sitting at home in itself even if you're working or not working, sitting at home itself is a pain because we are all social creatures. I mean, like we would like to go out,
Oh,
right? And at least have some sense of normalcy. But I guess uh, that 1-2 hours of travel can be worked out.
definitely. The
Okay.
worst part is the commute. It is the commute. Hands down, it is the commute. Especially for companies like EY, our clients are located multiple kilometers away, 40 kilometers away, 50 kilometers away. So 2-3 hours of commute easily. If you cut that down, you find yourself with a lot of time. So reduced workload, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say my workload
Okay.
increased. It definitely reduced because of the pandemic, I would say, because of the time I could save from commute, all the commute. So I think that was great.
Okay, so let's go through part by part because I mean, like most people will be interested. I mean, like, do I need to speak about English or non-engineers are by default good at English?
I think so. English is one area I had absolutely no preparation for, in the sense that I did try out some RCs, but at the end of the day, English boils down to whether or not you've been reading regularly. So at the end of the day, English is about aptitude. So if you've been reading regularly, if you can read at a certain pace, and if you're able to comprehend things quickly, I think it's sorted. I mean, beyond that, you don't need any amount of preparation. And para jumbles are completely random. It is very, very random. I don't know how they prepare it. To be honest, they are very random. So even by looking at the right answers, you'll wonder, okay, where did I go wrong? Oh, is this how it's supposed to be done? I mean, other than that, RCs are quite nice, but para jumbles, I don't know what to say. I mean, if anybody can help me out.
Basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come to the second part, which is like LRDI. Okay, and an associate part, which is maths as well.
Yeah.
So LRDI maths, supposedly engineers do really well at it. You're not an engineer, and you basically you had maths 11th 12th, but it's commerce based maths, right? I mean, more than anything else. So how did you get over that scary part of maths where like you look at all the PNC questions and crazy looking parts which come up in mocks, etc.? How did you work on your math skills and LRDI skills?
I think for math, you need to have a strategy in place. So if you're going to be daunted by all these number systems questions that don't appear at all, or has appeared, say, maybe 20 years ago, that will bog you down for sure. So what I did was I completely ignored them altogether. I stuck to areas, whatever. Profit and loss is easy. Percentages are easy. So why don't you stick to the basics and trust it? Because in the end, that helped me, sir. More than anything, I think that helped me. Just sticking to arithmetic and some parts of geometry I was comfortable with, that will sail you through the percentile requirement easily. You can score well above 95 just by focusing on arithmetic, coordinate geometry and geometry. That's all you need. You don't even need number systems, sir. To be honest, I don't.
What about algebra? What about algebra?
Yes. Algebra, yes, to a great extent. Linear equations, quadratic equations, roots, these are things that you've already learned. You just need to tweak it a little bit, optimize, and just need to prepare for it. Just practice some questions. It'll all work out because there's nothing to be scary about. I mean, things like Chinese remainder theorem. I mean, people try to pull you down. So they say that CAT is meant for engineers. You have all these fancy concepts that nobody has heard of. So if you get into all that conversation and if you start thinking about it, that's all. I mean, it's like a writer's block. You'll not even feel like preparing for QA if you begin thinking about all that. So stick to your basics. Most important. That was the most important piece of advice. Arithmetic, do questions from arithmetic. Algebra, do questions from algebra. That's all. Do it well. That should be taken care of. And let me speak about DI now. So DI, I think more than anything, diverse number of questions. So diverse types of questions. So that's what matters. So for that, structured preparation helps. So there are multiple booklets from Time, CL, IMS. So if you go through all that, you'll find that, okay, there's an overlap in the type of questions that appear in all these booklets. So what I did was I subscribed to Top My Test for DILR. I think that's about it. So I just skimmed through all the types of questions in the portal, and that's about it. My DILR prep was done. I did not have to look elsewhere. Nowhere. I did not have to look at any of the booklets, because at the end of the day, DILR practice is important more than practice the types of questions, because this time around DLR was quite hard. You had the 4-set Venn diagram and all these concepts if you're aware of the concept, I think you should be able to handle it. You shouldn't be caught prepared on exam days. Shouldn't be like you've never seen this type of question before and it comes on exam day. So then it'll be a sort of, I don't know how to go about it. You shouldn't have the time to think and work on a new type of question on exam day. It must be something you've seen, something you're used to. So that's the best way to go about it. That eliminates a lot of uncertainty altogether. So practicing a lot of questions.
Okay. Just one question on this. Which slot were you in CAT?
At slot 3.
Oh, the worst slot, or supposedly the worst slot. So you would have definitely looked at the previous slot analysis or cheat codes or whatever people. I mean, what was going through your mind when you were actually listening to that and then you saw the paper? Because what I heard was, I mean, especially for people who were in slot 3, they were abusing IIML more than anything else.
So I'll tell you, slot 1, there was a question on the 4-set Venn diagram. So my friend had come out. He told me, listen, there's a question on 4-set Venn diagram. Okay, I thought, okay, I've seen 4-set Venn diagram before, but let me just go through it quickly for the sake of it. And I did exactly that before my slot 3. And there was a question on 4-set Venn diagram in slot 3 as well. I was just able to run through it quickly. In no time, I was able to run through it. So, I mean, it could always be said that, okay, one slot was easier than the other or harder than the other. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the results, you'll know that slot 3 was the easiest. I mean, people scored much higher in slot 3 compared to slot 1 and slot 2, and especially for DLR. So that's what happened at the end of the day.
Okay. Okay. And what about your time management? So you spoke about the fact that, you had work to balance. You also had preparation to balance. Was there like a set point of time where you used to study? Like a lot of people like to study at night. A lot of people like to study before they start the day. What was your pattern and how did you manage your time during the weekend, etc.?
So I used to work until 8:30 easily on most days. So I did not have a lot of time during the weekdays. So maybe I put in an hour here and there. I mean, during weekdays, an hour here and there, half an hour, whatever I could find, whatever I could salvage. That's about it. But on weekends, I think I put in about 2-3 hours on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday both. So that was my schedule all the way leading to September, October. So during November, maybe all days put together, 2-3 hours every single day leading up to the exam. So that was my schedule overall.
So you did not over prepare, so to speak. I mean, like, no. And you feel that was sufficient. I mean, like you did not have to leave your job and.
No.
Okay. I remember just before you joined the course, you had also mentioned that there were a couple of your seniors or somebody in your organization who had basically joined IIM Kozhikode or IIM Indore, and you wanted to emulate them.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they were also not non-engineers. So. Right. As you were going through your mock season, and I remember a couple of times you said like, okay, my mock scores are not going up. So did you feel pressurized to live up to those standards, or like what exactly was that? Because sometimes your idols or some people you look up to can be inspirational. They can also sometimes, be a source of pressure, right? So how did it?
I think there are 2 ways to look at it. So I think some people find mocks to be extremely challenging and demotivating. So I'm one of those people. So I took these mocks. So I saw scores like 8 percentile, 12 percentile in quants. So I thought, okay, best idea is to just skip mocks altogether. And that's what I did. So I did not want to be affected by the score. So you told me this. So you told me this. So mock scores, they plateau. So they only improve after a certain period in time where you've covered in at least 60% of your syllabus in areas like quant, especially. So unless you cover that, you'll not be able to see remarkable improvement in your mock score. So I took in my first mock sometime in July or August. I scored an overall percentile roughly about 84, 85, but my quant score was very poor. It was borderline 40, 45 percentile, very, very poor. So what I did was I stopped taking mocks altogether. I only resumed mocks in the month of, say, October. That's when I took my next mock. So I did not want to get demotivated.
So you had actually stockpiled all your mocks and then
I
basically
stockpiled all the mocks. I just thought, okay, now is not the time to get demotivated. Of course, taking mock regularly helps, but my idea was that okay, I have work to balance, I have CAT to prepare about. So mocks shouldn't be a source of anxiety for me. So let me just take them later when I'm comfortable to do so. So that's what I did. And I think that helped, because taking mocks very early, it could hamper your preparation. So I mean, so to say, it can
Okay.
pull you down.
And roughly how many mocks did you take overall
About
in through the?
six full mocks. That's all altogether.
That's it. That's
That's
it.
it.
Six full mocks.
That's it.
Okay. And you never felt pressured by all those Quora article which says that I took 50 mocks, I took
Oh,
85
God.
mocks, I took 100 mocks.
First of all, I want to know
You
how
didn't
people
give in to
could
the
find the
pressure.
time. No, I don't know. Yeah, no,
Basically, you did not have the time also, right? I mean, like
I
you
did not
to
have the
prepare.
time. So time was a factor.
Okay.
Second thing, okay, just the motivation. How do people take 50 mocks and still go to the exam and write it? It's a lot of mocks to take, because that's a lot of work, a lot of mocks to take. I mean, people do that. That's great, but it can pull you down. If you take 50, 60 mocks, you'll that's a lot. That's a lot of mocks to take for one exam. So it's an added pressure. Also,
Okay.
you'll see yourself perform in those 60 mocks, and if CAT doesn't turn out the way you want it to turn out, I mean, in hindsight, you could always say, okay, 6 mocks were sufficient or 60 mocks were sufficient, but nobody knows, sir. It's all one black hole. Nobody knows the exact number of mocks to take, but 6, 7 worked for me. I took them seriously. I took them well. That's about it. So if you do the mocks seriously, if you analyze them well, that's sufficient. 6 to 7 mocks. You don't need to take 60, 70, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Next question, which a lot of people basically ask is, I mean, at least I like to ask people is, what are the most overrated and underrated parts in each section? Right. Okay. Let's start with verbal. What is the most overrated part in verbal, according to you? And what is the most underrated part where people should be focusing on that, but they don't end up focusing on that?
Overrated part, definitely. So when I started my CAT preparation, everybody told me, okay, Norman, you have to read this book, Word Power Made Easy. I was like, why do I need to read it? You have to brush up your vocabulary. I was like, okay, that's the most overrated part, brushing up vocabulary. CAT never tests your vocabulary. It only tests common words. So you might find an odd word here and there, but that's about it. You'll not find, I mean, Shashi Tharoor level vocabulary anywhere during your, I don't know, passage or parajumbles or whatever. You'll find one odd word here and there, but that's about it. So vocabulary is the most overrated.
But that you can, I think, figure out from the context, right?
Yeah, that definitely, sir. You can figure it out from the context always. So preparing for vocabulary separately, I don't think anybody should do that. You shouldn't, unless your vocabulary is extremely weak, wherein you don't know some basic words, then it makes sense to prepare for it. But if you have been reading from 10th, 11th, 12th, you don't need to prepare separately for vocabulary, number one. Number two, spending an inordinate amount of time for parajumbles and odd one out. So that never helps, because at the end of the day, CAT is random. So especially when it comes to parajumbles, it's completely random. You'll be thrown off completely. You might have prepared for it. You might have taken 20 parajumble questions every day, but it turns out their logic is entirely different from what you think it is. So parajumbles and vocabulary for me are the most overrated parts. Underrated is RC. Key to cracking the VRC section is RC. If you're able to understand the context and get the questions right, or I think that goes a long way in boosting your VRC score. So RCs are the most important element of VRC section.
Okay. Let's move to the next one. DILR, most overrated and underrated parts.
Okay. So DLR, I think underrated is just covering a lot of base, sir, because most people, they get stuck to say one type of puzzle. They do 50 of them, 60 of them. So it doesn't help, right? So if you know the concept of, say, one puzzle, just move on, do 5-6 questions and move on. Don't be stuck up and do 60-70 questions of the same puzzle, because it's not going to help you. Truth, lies, transportation, and all these networking. So all these things, I mean, there are multiple puzzles. If you get consumed by it, you'll end up doing 100-150 questions of the same type. You'll not be able to cover a lot of base. So I think that's one thing you should keep in mind. So underrated is preparing for a wide variety of questions. So anything that is thrown your way, you can face it on exam day. So that's one aspect that you should cover. And overrated is preparing these extremely hard type of DLR questions which has never appeared in CAT. I mean, some of these
even if they appear, you can leave them. That's the beauty of
always
it, right?
leave it. You always have questions that you can attempt. I mean, there is definitely one or two questions that are easily doable. If you spend the time, they're definitely doable. You just need to sit with them. So the aspect is to not get intimidated by these questions, right? If you find something intimidating, just move on, just mark it for the end and move on. Do the ones you can, because that's all you need. Yeah.
Okay. And maths, I think you have already covered numbers, etc. But still a recap. I mean, like what exactly should people at least should get?
Yeah, underrated is arithmetic. So at least 10 to 12 questions from just arithmetic applications. If you cover arithmetic well, you're done. Arithmetic plus algebra. Just focus on them, get it done. That should be sufficient. Because if you go by the trend also, I think weightage has increased from 2015 leading all the way to 2020. Arithmetic number of questions have increased, they've never decreased. So it's either the same or they've increased. And overrated is definitely number systems as a whole. PNC, probability, number systems, not even one question. It was appalling. Not even a single question from probability that I can remember, or permutations and combinations that I can remember. So there were all these questions in the booklets. I mean, I don't know if engineers themselves can solve these questions, because some of them are insanely hard. I don't know how people get through those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, throughout this journey, I mean, like it's a pretty long process. I mean, like you start in somewhere around May, June, maybe somewhere around May, 7 months to just prepare for the exam. And after that, waiting for the results, etc. There will definitely be low points in that. I mean, like where you actually feel like, chuck it. Especially, see, you had a job, and a lot of people, especially when they have a job, is that, okay, I have a reasonably well-paying job. This is not going to be the end of the world. This is not happening. Let me check it. I will probably try next year. First of all, did that thought come to your mind, and how did you deal with that?
So that point came to my mind on the very first day I started preparing for CAT. So it looked like I had an ocean to cover, man. I mean, all the syllabus, had very little time, had a job. So very first day I started preparing, that's the day I came to you and asked you, should I quit my job, or does this sit well? What do I do? What do I do now? And that's when you told me, don't do all that. Why do you have to quit your job? Just keep at it. I mean, that's what I did. So very first day of my CAT preparation, I was down. That's all. And post that, I think I was just preparing, sir. I just trusted the process. I just prepared, just went about it. And when I took my first mock, I remember feeling dejected because the scores weren't great at all, not even close to what the IIMs expect out of you. So I think I felt dejected then. And that's why I stopped taking mocks. That's the reason I stopped taking mocks. I reserved them towards the end of my, just before just 2 weeks away from before CAT. That's when I took my mocks. So until then I hadn't taken mocks. So after my first mock, so those were my lows. But definitely it turned out well, because job does help you, sir. So all these aspects, psychological factors, they help you more than your preparation. I mean, preparation helps you, but these are aspects one shouldn't overlook. Right frame of mind, it's incredibly important. That's the most underrated aspect of, I don't know, CAT journey. You should be on the right frame of your mind, should be happy, should have a lot of friends. You shouldn't put yourself all together. You shouldn't isolate yourself. You shouldn't, I mean, if you're happy doing something, just keep at it. I mean, CAT preparation can be done, but if you take away these things, you're placing a huge amount of importance on CAT itself, right? So you have a lot invested in CAT, so that shouldn't be the way. I mean, you should focus on other things as well. So holistic preparation is important. That's a key
Okay.
thing.
So given that it's holistic preparation and you are wearing a Liverpool shirt as well, so there is also discussion. I mean, see, the thing is, there are a lot of things which, okay, let's not call it distractions. They are also like our interests, passions, etc. Like some people might like watching movies, some people might like going out, some people might like working out, some people might like going out with friends and playing football, cricket, etc. Now, part of it was restricted because of COVID, and that's why you already there was no choice in that. But there are big, to make up for that, there are a lot of other things, like you have a Zoom video call with all your friends, you have a Netflix party where everyone is playing over there. Like there is, like, you can do it on Discord and you can play all of you can watch Netflix at the same time. And I mean, I have done it also during pandemic. But the question was, how did you manage those so-called, okay, distractions? They are important because, as I said, we are social people. So how did you manage friends, family without getting like putting your nose to the books and just beating yourself about preparing for CAT? How did you manage that?
I think these distractions, so to speak, kept me going, because I don't know, hadn't it been for these distractions, I wouldn't have been half as prepared for the exam. Because at the end of the day, say you prepare for 1.5 hours after a rough day at work, you need something to take your mind away from it. So, okay, then you prepare for CATs, say 1.5 hours. You need to reward yourself for it, because if you don't reward yourself for it, you'll not find the motivation to do it and take it up the next few days and the days after that. So it's important to keep these distractions close to you and not at bay. I mean, watch your movies, go out with friends, talk to them, because you'll know that, okay, if CAT doesn't work out, I'll still not feel dejected. Okay, I did not do these things, I focused on CAT. Despite that, I did not do well in CAT. So that shouldn't be the case. I mean, keep at it. Do your preparation rigorously. Set aside time for CAT, but also set aside time for yourself, because it doesn't work otherwise. So it's not if this then that. It's both together. You have to manage your time accordingly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's speak about your interviews. I mean, that second phase is also equally important, right? You have about 3 years of experience. Were any questions asked about your acads? What were your interview processes like?
Definitely. So starting, when I started the interview prep, I had my CV ready, CV points ready. I had covered every single point, 36 months of work ex, whatever they could ask, what sectors I worked in, or what was my day-to-day like. So I prepared for all these questions. So I written them down. I prepared for it in detail. But to my surprise, there was about, I would say about 40-50% of my questions still revolved around acads. So these are things I think they still look at acads very seriously. So if you are a non-engineer, you need to take up your acads seriously. You need to prepare for them. And so roughly, to give you a rough idea, 50% of the questions were around acads. About 20 to 30% of them was static GK or current GK. And only about 20-30% of them was about my work and behavioral type of questions, so to speak. So that's a rough split.
Okay, that's very nice to hear. Okay, any parting word of advice before we close? I mean, you have to go for a meeting. I'll let you go early. So, is there any parting word of advice, especially for people who are giving? I mean, who are giving a second, third, fourth attempt at CAT, and people who are non-engineers? What will be your biggest advice to them?
So one parting word of advice is, you see all these 99 percentilers, 99.5 percentilers, don't get bogged down by them. All you need to get is to a good college. See, you don't need to get 99.5. You need to get a good percentile that land you in a good college. So find out what your target colleges are. Look at the composite score requirements and what you need to be focusing on, because more than CAT, there are other factors at play as well. 10th, 12th, graduation. So these things are critical. So one shouldn't look, just know what your options are. Be serious, know what your options are. Don't be in a fantasy world. So if you have poor scores, okay, then revise your target scores accordingly, target colleges accordingly. So that's one thing you should do. You should undertake that exercise of preparing your target colleges. Okay, these are the colleges, this is my score, this is the card that has been dealt to me, what do I do with it? So preparation should start from that and not directly 99.5. That should be my aim. Okay, many people say that, but that can be counterproductive also. So work towards your aim, and I mean, not towards a number as such. That's all.
I mean, yeah, percentile is just a requirement. I mean, like your final aim is to get into the college.
Yeah.
Okay. Anand, thank you very much for coming in. I mean, I know you have a call coming up as well from your hectic schedule. You are wrapping up your work. So finally, where are you going?
I'm going to Lucknow. I'm Lucknow.
Okay, even though you're moving all the way across the Tropic of Cancer and moving all the way from South India to North India, guys. So that was Anant. In case you like this video, please share this on with your friends. We will also be posting Anand's LinkedIn profile in the description. If you want, you can connect with him over there. Please don't ask questions on like how to solve this or what was the percentile required, etc. As he said, everyone has a different set as such. My name is Vivek. You are watching MBA Prep Talk. Till we meet again, stay safe and goodbye.